Hi, microphone check. Okay, perfect. And then am I Yes. For my participants on Zoom, we will be starting in about 2 minutes. We are just having our in-person public fill out the public comment forms for what is needed for today. Huh? That's actually cool. But we're still very close. All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Abigail Mayorga, and we're going to be beginning the Ward 5 Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting. Again, if you plan to give public comment for any of the items listed on the agenda today, please fill out a public comment form right in front, and then you can give it to myself or Jana, and we'll make sure that your public comment form is submitted for the record and that you get your chance to speak. Mr. Chair, Gary, I am ready to begin the Ward 5 NAB Advisory Board whenever you are.
Thank you, Abby. Welcome to everybody. Nice to see some new faces at the meeting. Let's go to item A1. Let's, if you please give us a call to order and a roll call, Abby.
Perfect. All right. Gary Cecil.
Here.
Carol Crane. Here. Bryce Chisholm.
Here.
Jeff Harvey. Absent at this time. Council Liaison, Council Member Kathleen Taylor. Thank you. And then Staff Liaison, Abigail Mayorga present. And then Jana Moyer, Staff Liaison, present as well. You have a quorum of the Ward 5 Neighborhood Advisory Board, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you. Let's go right to item A2, public comment. We welcome anybody to come to the podium, or if there's anybody on Zoom, and take public comment.
Perfect.
If you haven't already, please make sure if you're going to that you've registered over here. We would appreciate that.
Perfect. And before we begin, Mr. Chair, members of the public may hear, observe, and provide public comment virtually by registering through the following link, which can be found on the reno.gov/meetings. So bear with me, I will read the link at this moment. So the virtual link for this meeting is https://us06 WEB:ZOOM:US WEBINAR/REGISTER/capital W N _ KU P J G 3 T E R CM capital Y, Z, Y, B, J, capital G, 7-8, capital F, 3W. Thank you. All right, Mr. Chair, we'll begin with opening public comment. I have first Lauren Torvinen. And then you guys can go right up to the podium and unmute yourself. Yes.
I have one. So you can just post it up under here. All right.
Keep one. And then document camera. There you go. Oh, I mean PC. Perfect. And as a reminder, you will have 3 minutes to give your public comment. Doc camera. Sent to all.
What's that? Okay. So my name is Lauren Torvinen, and I'm here to express my support for the Putnam Creighton neighborhood to-go residential parking permits. I moved to Reno in 1995 to get my teaching credential at UNR, and I've only lived on the 500 block of Putnam Drive. In 1999, my husband and I purchased our home, and we knew we wanted to stay here long-term because of how wonderful our neighborhood is. In the almost 30 years I have lived here, we have had people park on Putnam. We have people that park to attend and or work at UNR, and they would arrive and leave in the morning and leave when their day was done. We have people park for UNR games, balloon races, dragon lights, etc. All of these vehicles utilize our street to attend something nearby and then leave to go to their respective homes. We have also lived next to the Brown Apartments on Sierra Street, and we have never noticed tenants from there parking on our street. Last fall, we noticed that cars were parking on Putnam and not leaving. And then more cars were parking and were not leaving. We could no longer park in front of our home because once that space became open, someone would take it and use it for long-term parking. We noticed more traffic because people that park on our street get picked up by a friend, so they wouldn't have to walk to where they were going. We noticed more cars speeding through our neighborhood, just looking for a place to park. Some people parking are courteous and respectful to our yards and neighborhood, but there are many more that are not. To them, it's a free parking lot and nothing more. They leave garbage behind, they leave bird scooters behind when they ride them to their cars, they park in front of our entry walkways and mailboxes, and sometimes block driveways. And the cars are parked there for days and weeks because to them it is a free lot. And if you'll notice the parking, I picked one car, and those are they're date stamped on my phone. So I didn't make the dates up. You can check my phone. Here she is in front, or he in front of my mailbox. Here moved a couple days later in between the two driveways. Here, same, they were there February 5th, February 8th, they hadn't moved. February 12th, now they're between 2 other homes on Putnam Drive. They're at the end of our street. They got cited because they were parked too far from the curb. March 31st again on our street, May 5th on the street. So it's the same cars that do not leave. When the city came out to cite or to check if cars were leaving or not, this truck was cited on May 13th. Well, not cited, but had the sticker that said, you had so many hours to move, and it was still there on May 21st. So what good is that if they could just, the stickers can stay on the vehicles and there's no, they're not getting towed, there's nothing happening. We also have parking in front of a fire hydrant. If there's no parking, they just want the first parking spot that's closest to those new apartment buildings that have been built, because to them it is just a lot. It's not a neighborhood. They don't worry about the residents, obviously parking in front of our parking lot. My husband's going to talk a little bit about the garbage. So this photo represents the garbage that we now have in our neighborhood. And here's the bird scooter. If you notice, a car left and put a bird scooter there. Now a car is back. The cars have not changed except for that one. And the bird scooter is now in our yard. Lastly, when I looked at the walkability for the Dean and for Park Place and for Uncommon Reno, they are in the 40s. And it says you'll likely want a car when living in this area since it has few transit options. So where the students are living that are parking in our neighborhood as using it as a parking lot, it's because they need a car.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Mr. Jim Torvinen.
Good evening. My name is Jim Torvinen. I'm here tonight to express my support for our neighborhood to obtain residential parking permit. We've lived by in the Brown apartment complex located at Sierra and have not had a single parking issue with their tenants. The new apartments that were built recently in our homes were allowed to be built without enough parking, and our neighborhood has become their additional parking lot. Our neighborhood street has become a free parking lot for those tenants. if the apartment tenants do not have a parking spot at the complex, it comes with a price of more than $125 per month. I'm certain some students would prefer to save that money and park for free on Putnam Drive, and they do. We take great part in the neighborhood. This year, I'm cleaning up garbage left behind on the street and in our yard more times than I can remember. This year, it has been hard to do some of our landscaping work because we do not have much access to the street side of our yard because of all the vehicles parked there. I had to wait for an opportunity to prune trees, weed, clean the gutters, etc. We lost a limb during one of the storms last year and had to wait days until I could move one of my vehicles close enough to disposal. Street sweepers can only clean the center of our street, which leaves garbage and debris in the gutter. My wife and I have 3 boys, and they need to drive to school and to work. They can no longer find parking in front of our house when they return, and oftentimes cars that have been parked in front of our house stay there for multiple days. And as soon as one car drives away, it's not long before another car takes its place. We should not have a complete for parking with people who are not residents or friends or residents of Putnam Drive. I want our neighborhood back. I don't want to live in a parking lot. I want to live on Putnam Drive, just like I have done for so many years. Thank you.
Up next, we have Sarah Christian.
Hi, I'm Sarah Christian. I've lived on Putnam Drive for 9 years. I want to echo what Lauren and Jim have said. We've come to expect the parking on our road for special events. We have university sports, graduation, dragon lights, the balloon races. That's not an issue. Cars come, cars go. The issue is the long-term parkers who come and they don't respect the neighborhood. And we have them park repeatedly in front of our home, and it makes it difficult on garbage day getting the trash out. The mailman has trouble getting the truck up to the mailboxes. I worry about security for the cars that are parked there. I've had a car parked in front of my house for 10 days. And what happens if we do get car prowlers and they're mostly opportunistic, looking for doors that are unlocked and things? But what's my level of responsibility for a car that's there if something happens to it? I don't even know who I would call because I don't know who the car belongs to. And it's disruptive. People are coming and going late at night. They're speeding, they increase traffic. The scooters, as others have said, just tend to litter the street along with trash. When I have reported the vehicles, it looks like there's about a 6-day pattern where if it's there for 48 hours, I report it. About 48 hours later, someone comes and checks on it and marks it 48 hours. They come and they may leave some sort of citation. So the students had learned, okay, every 6 days I have to move my car 20 feet. And then another one comes in. So that's just what we've been dealing with since the new apartments have been built. Thank you.
Up next, we have Martin Milton.
Hello, I'm Martine Milton, and I also live on Putnam Drive. And what brings myself and my fellow neighbors here this evening is a result of the fact that not enough parking was constructed in the nearby neighboring apartments on North Virginia and North Sierra Streets for all their residents who are primarily UNR students. And here's what I found out. I acquired the number of residents and parking spaces that exist at the 3 complexes, Park Place, Uncommon, and now the Dean. Approximately 1,100 residents are left with no option to park where they live, except on the recommended few spaces along North Virginia and North Sierra Street as an overnight option. Even at the generous guess that maybe a third of the residents don't have a car, that's still approximately 500 or 750 vehicles without a parking space. These large apartment buildings are only required by the city to provide 1 parking space per unit. The units range from 1 to 6 beds. So the problems now are 700 to 1,100 vehicles need to find overnight parking, and our neighborhood has been discovered. As everybody shared the same problems with no parking for days and trash and blocking the fire hydrants and sometimes blocking driveways and driving too fast. I inquired about a speed bump and was told certain number of incidences need to occur before that happens. We have many families with young children down there and in the neighborhood, and 1 incident is too many. Resorting to permit parking is what we're looking at, which currently seems a viable solution, although losing our freedom to have family and friends and parking for celebrations and gatherings and facing them getting ticketed is not desirable. The city's resources would still need to be spent monitoring the permits too. Solutions, as far as they go, perhaps the city could find more parking, maybe overnight parking on campus. Maybe the city could require more parking in the future for new construction complexes. And if we're not granted the permit options, maybe a sign at the end of the street where there's a barrier, where there's some kind of warning or I don't know, something, just looking at possible solutions. I don't know what they are. In closing, this parking problem isn't the fault of the students or the apartment complex developers, and certainly not us kind neighbors. In the future, more realistic requirement could be in place to avoid some of Reno's parking dilemma. I'm not a planner, but the outcome of these massive construction projects is no surprise, and now it remains to be patched up. Respectfully, thank you for your consideration.
Up next, we have Marina McCadden.
Good evening, members of the Neighborhood Advisory Board. For the record, my name is Marina McCatton at 545 Putnam Drive. I appreciate the opportunity to address the parking issues occurring on our street this evening. Parking is a critical concern for many of the residents on and around Putnam, and I believe that by working together, we can find an effective solution. This issue has become urgent and one that needs to be addressed, as several of my neighbors and their families are having challenges finding places to park in front of their homes. We have increased speeding on our street and trash from people's vehicles being left behind. We have a very strong sense of community on Putnam and have been working together to find ways to address this issue. We understand that some of our neighbors are not impacted as others, so they might not see this as something that affects them. However, the increased traffic and speeding that has occurred is problematic, especially for those with children. Putnam has historically been a quiet street, which is one of the draws in making it a nice place to live. We understand this is a symptom of the housing being constructed around the university, with not enough parking spaces created for the residents. University area parking issues must be addressed. Overflow parking on Putnam and other streets and neighborhoods is not a sustainable solution. Residential parking or something equivalent could be a solution to support the overall well-being of our neighborhood community as we all look out for the safety of our fellow neighbors and maintain the strong sense of community that has been established for many years on Putnam. Thank you.
Up next, we have Mac Rossi. Perfect. Thank you, Matt. And then I have Peter Murphy. I just wanted to clarify if you would like to make a statement. Okay, perfect.
So my name is Peter Murphy and I live on 504 Putnam. And to not repeat everything that they've already said, there's a couple things that I just wanted to put in there. So it's all hours of the evening. And so they've got their kids, so they have subwoofers, and I have dogs. So it wakes in, they're obviously on different schedules. And so it wakes me up constantly so I can barely sleep. That's one thing. And then, and it's getting so bad where I can't even put my trash cans out on the street to have the garbage picked up. So, but the speeding is obviously something that needs to be addressed because they are kids. They're not paying attention. So anyway, that's basically what I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. At this time, that concludes in-person public comment. If you are on Zoom and would like to give public comment, please raise your hand. And I'll give it a second. All right, no one on Zoom, Mr. Chair. That concludes public comment.
Thank you, Abby, and thank you very much, everyone. We have an agenda item on this, just a few items down if you hang in with us. Going to A3, the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any recommendations for changes?
Mr. Chair, there is one change. If we go to B3.2, ABN 24-00002. This application is no longer being heard at the NAB. The developer has pulled and is on hold until further notice.
Okay, thank you, Abby. Appreciate that. Anything from you? Anybody else? Can I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
I motion to approve the agenda.
Bryce Chisholm, I'll second.
Perfect.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Going on to A4, approval of the minutes from June the 13th, 2023. Have you had a chance to look at the items?
Yes.
They usually look pretty good to me.
Okay. They were excellent, I think. Again, could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes from June.
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Thank you. Going on to item A5, council liaison report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Councilwoman Taylor, for the record. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you to all of our Putnam residents and neighbors for being here. I know this has been a very, very long process for you, so appreciate your patience through this. We are getting there, I hope. Secondly, I just wanted to bring your attention to a couple things that are on our agenda tomorrow. The first one being on the consent agenda, we have 2 items for business licensing approval that I think are rather exciting. I don't know what's going to happen, but we have the Parkway Tavern coming for approval of their licenses. And then we also have Lock, Stock, and 2 Smoking Bagels, which is on 2nd Street that's coming in, which is very exciting because if you know where that is, it's between Sierra Street and Virginia Street on the north side there behind the market. That'll be a nice space for a new business. Excited about that. And then the other thing that we have further on in the agenda is it's the regional CAD governance agreement. And the reason why we care about that is because it's been a super large, long, intense effort by our team. And it's the first major step towards regional fire EMS response policies, which is true automatic aid. So I'm super excited about that. Again, it's on the agenda. I'm not sure what's going to happen. But our team really worked very hard on that. So I'm very proud of them. And then just as I was walking in, over the weekend, I saw that we have Uncle Junkies getting ready to start some work over here on 1st Street in Virginia. So that's super exciting. We also have our 2nd reading and approval of the ward maps and new boundaries tomorrow. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions from the
No.
board? I just had one, Kathleen. Parkway Tavern, is that the one inside the old Harris building?
It is.
So have the issues over the number of gambling machines been resolved?
We'll see.
Okay.
I guess my update is it's on the agenda tomorrow.
Okay, fair enough. Just one comment too. I just wanted to thank you again for the really good article in the RGJ regarding homelessness.
It's a team effort.
It's a
Everything
team
we do
effort.
here is a team effort, but
It
thank you very
was-
much.
It was a very good article.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we had a great CHAB meeting yesterday too.
Good.
Lots of good things being done, and the more that we talk about it, I think the more that we can get people connected to the services that they need. So thank you very much.
Great, thanks. Moving on to item A6, staff liaison report.
For the record, Abigail Mayorga, I just wanted to flag 2 events that are happening. So this weekend, September, geez, I'm sorry, I'm way ahead. September 16, 2023 is the KTMB Great Community Cleanup. The mayor will be hosting a river cleanup down here actually at Westbrook, and then some of our council members will be participating. That is, again, this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and you can register on the Keep Truckee Meadows beautiful website. They're always looking for volunteers, and it's just a great time to go out before it gets a little too cold. And there are different areas of interest as well if you're looking to participate in the cleanup. It ranges all the way from Verdi to the river to different areas. So definitely a good opportunity. And then on the same note, our Ward 5 cleanup, or not cleanup, sorry. Yeah, our Ward 5, it's the fall. So all of our cleanups are happening again. So ours is scheduled for October 21st to actually occur at UNR, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that's a great opportunity for neighbors and residents to bring in their old waste, e-waste, hazardous waste, things that you can't necessarily dispose of on, a regular Saturday. So that is October 21st from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. There will be different bins for you to get rid of old household items that you have, and it is a first come, first served basis, and that is on our Reno website as well, reno.gov/cleanups. So you can get more information. And if you can't make the Ward 5 one, there are other opportunities in different areas for you to get rid of those items. Perfect. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Abby. I just had one question, procedural question. Do we still send out the notifications of the NAP meetings by email? I know I saw Ward 1 in the last week, but I don't remember seeing Ward 5.
So we send quarterly Reno Connects in regards to the upcoming items. If you're looking for the most up-to-date, like NABs and everything, that would be on the Reno City calendar. And those is where you would find the dates and confirmation of the NABs.
Okay, so we don't send one out just for each monthly meeting.
No.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right, thank you. Okay, moving on to section B, the business items. B1 is a scheduled Reno Fire Department quarterly report.
Yes, it's on. All right, good. Had troubles with the mic in the past. My name is Brad Drum, Battalion Chief for Reno Fire Department. I work in Battalion 2, which is a little different than the ward system that you guys have. But Chief Cochran asked me to come by and give you a couple really quick updates and see if there's any questions. The updates that we gave in the last NAB were, we have 24 firefighters out of the academy, and they're on probation. They'll be on probation for a year and evaluated, rotating into various stations through the city. So that's a huge success for us and a big win. Number two, we have our single role medic program is not only moving forward very rapidly, but we're at a place where we're making amazing strides in very fast community responses, the districts that these single roles are placed. So we look forward to growing that program more and more. These are single role, I say single role as in they are strictly paramedic level providers in an ambulance, a self-contained unit, and they will work side by side with the fire departments, but they're stationed within the city fire station, so they have a very fast response. And then lastly, the last update is we're very excited about a new Station 1 that's in the design and development phase. If you remember, before the ballpark, we had our old central fire station in that intersection of Evans and Second. So the new fire station is being designed to fill the lot, which is where the current City of Reno PD station is, right over the river between Coonsley and Second, on that kind of bridge transition area. And so as soon as RPD gets their stuff moved over to the old RGJ building there, we will begin demolition and building of that fire station, which is going to be approximately a 7-bay station. So we'll have 6 apparatus in there responding, and it'll fill a really big need that we're having limited resource availability with our station currently at 4th, kind of in that little 4th and Valley corner where we can only fit 2 response vehicles. So those are 3 big updates, and I'll gladly take any questions that you guys have.
Any questions from the board members?
I haven't any.
I guess I would just ask if there's been any major fires in Ward 5.
No, Ward 5. Ward 5 is a big district. It encompasses stations 4, 8, a little bit of 10, 11 and 19 on the north side of the river, and then a little bit of District 5 on the south side of the river. We run our battalions geographically. So Battalion 1 is anything north of the river, Battalion 2, anything south. Ward 5 has a unique downtown chunk that's moving through the J development and westward towards Mogul and Verdi. So this year we've been very fortunate with the weather. Obviously a late, heavy, wet spring, and we're cooling off pretty quickly. So wildland, no, we have not had a whole lot, which usually affects Mogul and Verdi. We do have the typical transition from warm weather to cool weather fires that we find in homeless encampments, but that's being limited and worked on. As the councilwoman mentioned, there's a big drive to get homeless into the shelter before it gets cold. So those are our major seasonal fires, the wildland season, and any type of outside fire. We have not had any in Ward 5 that I'm aware of that are large fires that have endangered any structures. Yeah, that's good news.
Yes, that's very good news. Also having the new fire station too. I know where you mean, and that's really
Yeah.
good. 7 more bays.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I can't wait.
Just one final comment. I shouldn't have to be reminded of it every year, but September 11th always makes me think about the first responders.
Yes.
So we appreciate everything you and your colleagues do for the city, the danger you put yourself in on our behalf. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to B2, and that is the issue of the proposed residential parking zone on Putnam Drive. Amy's here, Amy Pennington from the city. Good to see you, Amy.
Good to see you too. Hello, it's great to be back. Amy Pennington with City of Reno Public Works Department. I am here to talk about, let's see, is that, oh, there we go. Thank you. Here to talk about the proposed residential parking zone, zone 15, and it's Putnam Drive, Creighton Way, and Colgate Court are the streets in it. Oh, I have a clicker here. Look at that. So just a little bit of background on residential parking zones. We have 14 of them currently in the city of Reno. This is just a map here on the side that shows some of the ones that are currently operating. There's a lot of them that are adjacent to the university due to some of the challenges that you heard earlier today with students finding places to park. It is in RNC 6.07, which is where we get the rules about how to implement them. They are petition driven by residents. And so a resident comes in with a petition saying that they are seeing things in their neighborhood, thinking that cars are not local. We verify it by city staff. City staff goes out and verifies that the cars indeed are not local to the neighborhood. And it has to be proven that the vehicles cause congestion or a burden on the neighborhood. And then if the petition is opposed by more than half of the homeowners in the area, then it cannot move forward, and ultimately council then approves. If there's enough support in the neighborhood, council then can approve it. So this is the proposed residential parking zone for the Putnam area in the shaded area here on the screen. It is adjacent to Washington Street and North Sierra Street. And the reason that this whole area is highlighted is it has a feeder on Putnam Drive that goes into the neighborhood. So the whole neighborhood is considered kind of one unit. We had a request from a property owner to proceed with a parking zone. So code enforcement did go out and verified that 75% of the vehicles were not residents when they studied the northeast area of the neighborhood. When we proposed the parking zone, we did include the whole neighborhood, because what we have found is that if we only did restrictions on the northeast area, those cars would just move down the street. So we take the whole neighborhood to mitigate just kind of the movement of cars down the street in front of the next houses. There are some pros and cons to parking zones. One of the pros is that only residents or guests of residents displaying a parking pass can park on the street. Guest passes are available to homes, and then you can also purchase passes up to the number of bedrooms in your home. Some cons, and so I guess we've already heard some of the reasons why people would want to do that. But if you have a lot of people parking on your street that are not residents or guests of residents, you don't have space for those people to come and have space to park. Cons are there are more parking restrictions. So if you have company over, you'd have to provide them with your guest pass. Just some different things that can create some additional, I guess, potential burdens if that is not something that you feel is necessary. They do cost money. It's $26 annually to renew your parking permit. And there are a limited number of spots available to the street space. So we do not oversell the neighborhood. There is 112 spaces in this neighborhood and 56 properties. So we do sell them on a first come, first served basis, and you can purchase up to the number of bedrooms in your home. So that is some of the things to consider. And so we did do a survey to see the support for the neighborhood. We sent survey notices to 56 property owners, and we got 39 unique responses, which is actually very high response for a public input survey. And the conclusion is that the neighborhood is 79% in support of a parking zone. And that is the end of my presentation. I can take any questions.
Thank you, Amy.
Mhm.
Carol, any questions?
No, not at this moment.
Bryce?
I guess I see that there's definitely not enough parking spaces at the college. I don't know if they're dorms or the apartment buildings that they have built. And so the overflow there, and I understand why you have to do the whole neighborhood because it'll just move over, if you only do half of it. So, I mean, it seems like they've met all your requirements and all your needs because 79% agree or support the, so.
Yes, 79% did not disagree.
Yeah.
I guess I would say so, but many people agreed, and yeah, there was.
So I mean,
Mhm.
I would see why it should move forward then, and they should be able to get it.
Yeah, are these cons really restrictive? I mean, more parking restrictions, what does that actually mean?
So I guess something that I was asked about when talking to I have talked to a lot of the residents who live here who just had questions about what it would mean. And one of the concerns was, if I had a barbecue and had 5 friends come over, would they all need parking passes to park on the street? And the answer is yes,
Yeah,
they would. And I mean,
I see.
would parking enforcement come at that time? I don't know. Could you have some people park in your driveway and some park on the street? Perhaps. So I think those are the types of things that are a little bit more, the neighbor just has to take into consideration of the pros and cons of, is this something that is worth it? Because in a neighborhood that is not feeling a large burden from outside vehicles, they may not want to take that extra step.
Could they put in guest parking spaces, neighbors sharing their driveways and allot some space on a driveway if they're large enough for guest parking for other people like they do in mobile home parks?
Oh, that would have to be, I guess, discussed and determined among the neighbors if they wanted to share some of their space for parking or
the
for guests.
Common good.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the people do have the opportunity to get a guest pass. And so that would be, if someone came, they could provide the guest pass to their guest or additional parking passes that they purchase.
Are the guest passes the same price as the annual pass?
I believe so. That's not 100% sure on that.
So if you purchase a guest pass, you can give it to another guest at another time.
We're gonna verify right now the price of the guest pass. And then we'll get back to you.
Good,
yeah.
thank you.
Well, because it seems kind of awkward then, like you're gonna have people over on Friday night. You just thought about doing that on Wednesday to go get a guest pass. It seems like a huge hassle.
Oh, I guess my understanding is that you have the guest pass.
Okay, so you have two cars at your place. You buy 2 passes annually, it's $56 or $52. And then you have 3 guests over. So you park yours on the street and you park 2 in your driveway of your guest, and then you need 1 additional guest pass.
Yeah. So these are the types of, I guess, considerations of the neighborhood to know if that's what they want to do.
Well, it sounds like the most feasible solution is to actually have it monitored. So the police come, or that you have a better, quicker response from Reno Direct or whoever else they are reporting this problem to.
So that's where the parking zone comes in. If right now I guess it's harder to cite a car that's parked for a long time because it may move or whatever, and there's not parking restrictions. That kind of help our parking enforcement monitor that. But when it is a parking zone, parking enforcement can obviously go through the neighborhood and see which cars are not displaying parking passes and cite them.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I see this happening more often. There was the project on Mayan in the post office. And there was 80 units going in with like 50 parking spaces or something like that. And they're going to be parking all through that neighborhood as well. So I don't like this trend of like
Mhm.
not having developers provide enough parking.
In general, I'm very supportive of this. I would give precedence to the majority of the residents. I think they're the ones that live there. I think it's only fair. I won't say too much about the process of allowing so little parking for that. That's a whole different issue, but I hope somebody somewhere in the city is going to look at that more carefully, because that obviously is a root cause.
Mhm.
My only other concerns is, are you sure that that's a big enough area so that the students won't just go and go to another neighborhood that's even bit out of there now? I mean, is it just
Oh.
kicking the can down the road without?
Oh, sure.
By nature, yes, it is kicking the can down the road potentially. But if other neighborhoods start seeing issues, they can follow the same petition process.
As a NAB, what would we do to first of all just point out our concern? I think that Bryce, you addressed it at a tangent, but about whatever the administrative code is regarding the number of parking spaces for apartments. Is that part of Title 18? Yeah, I'm probably asking
You know
something
what?
you don't know.
Yeah,
but-
and that would be more in the planning department. I'm not an expert on those development codes.
And
So,
we-
sorry.
And Abby, we don't have anyone from Development Services tonight.
I don't see anyone in the crowd by chance. Oh, Leah or Leah, sorry. There we go.
No. So I think that, Leah is up there.
Yeah, she is up there.
Short answer that.
Go ahead, Leah or Leah, sorry. And you should be able to unmute.
No problem. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, repeat the question. I heard us talking about parking standards and then about planning. What was the question?
Well, Leah, the agenda item's not specifically to get at the root causes tonight, but from what Bryce, my colleague, is saying, this may be a larger issue. Is that part of the Title 18 review process to look at something like that?
Amy Pennington for the record, just to clarify for Leah, talking about how when developments are built without enough parking, the parking overflows into neighborhoods. And so the neighbors are coming with a parking zone. So is there, I guess, where are those parking?
So parking standards come from two different places. Parking standards come from Reno Municipal Code Title 18, but there's also parking standards in building code. So like we were just talking about the development up there with the 80 townhomes on Mayan and the post office. Each one of those homes has 2 parking spaces because that's what's required for a single family residence. And then there are some additional parking spaces within that, but I do understand that for any kind of guest overflow, though, they're going to have to be parking on the street. So basically, without getting too into the weeds on this and too complicated, for a single family residence, 2 parking spaces are required.
Thank you.
Okay, if you could stay on, Leah. Amy, so
Well, and I think we're actually digressing from what we're talking about now, because this is really the multifamily housing in that area. I don't think is under the same as whatever development Leah's talking about.
Yeah. I guess, Leah,
So-
I'll just move on, but I just would be concerned that if we've got so many paid parking zones, this is not the first one. Is that an indication of Band-Aids that a more deeper, more thought out situation should go on? That's all. And as you're looking at Title 18 right now, I just ask for that to be considered somewhere in there, please.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Amy is correct. Multifamily parking is slightly different. And it depends on the number of rooms and the square footage as to what's required. But I do want to assure everybody that as that does go through the process of building permits or entitlements or whatever process, we do look at parking. But there is a general trend in planning in general to kind of, move away from these large parking lots and try to reduce the parking standards to improve like multimodal transportation and other forms of transportation. So that's a trend we're seeing in planning throughout the United States.
Okay.
And I'll also just add that part of the reason why these parking zones are there adjacent to the university, it's often because students are commuting to school and they don't want to purchase parking passes on campus. So there's a lot of different factors impacting the neighborhoods in this area.
Agreed.
Does this go to planning commission or does it go straight to city council?
No, it will we'll make a recommendation to the city manager after. Part of the reason why I'm here is just to make sure there's a public forum for residents to come and learn more and to talk about their concerns or ask questions, that sort of thing. But we'll make a recommendation to the city manager and he will decide to put it forward on an agenda or how to proceed.
Is there anything we as NAP members can do just to give our opinion?
We can definitely take, we have our traffic engineer here and he can, record the opinions of the board to help with our recommendation.
I think it would help if we went by the board and you can state your opinion so they can have the recording. Like, hi, my name is Carol Crane, Ward 5 NAB. I support Putnam, or I support this item. So that's on for the record, and then it's clear who and what is being said. So if you guys would like to do that, I think that would help.
For sure. Carol.
Carol Crane, yeah, I definitely support. I know how I too lived over close to the university and had to live day by day on how the UNR impacts the residential parking and residents' social lives and so forth and so on. So I am definitely hoping to see some help for this neighborhood.
Bryce.
Bryce Chisholm, I agree. If the neighborhood wants it, I'm all for it. And I think they need to solve the issue that, that is causing them so much, can't park, can't clean their yards, their streets, their driveways. So something needs to be done about it. So yes.
Gary Cecil, for the record, I also 100% support this. And if you could, Amy, just keep us posted on, I'd like to know what happens to this, but if we could move it forward, I'm sure it'd be very helpful to the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for coming. The next business item is B3 development projects. And we only have the one, which is the Old Town Road abandonment, B 3.1. That's ABN 240001. And we're not a decision-making body, but this is just discussion, informational. And good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Eric Hasty. I'm with Wood Rogers and I'm representing the applicant, Toll Brothers. This is the Old Town Road abandonment. Okay, so this is located directly south of Boomtown. So off of the exit of Interstate 80, south of Interstate 80, and then going into the existing neighborhood there off of Boomtown Garrison Road, turns into Old Town Road. What we're talking about today is approximately 24,000 square feet of right-of-way. And so this abandonment is kind of part of a larger project with a bunch of other improvements that have already been tentatively approved during the tentative map phase. And so the specific abandonment area that we're looking at, excuse me, is hatched here on the exhibit. Currently, the road is only a 24-foot wide paved area. It doesn't have curb or gutter or anything like that. And the issue with this access road is once they go in and put these improvements in here with these two roundabouts, the spacing between where the existing road comes in and where this intersection of the roundabout is going to be located is not on par with the NDOT standards for intersection spacing. And so as part of the larger improvements this is going to be abandoned, and then Warrior Way or Warrior Lane will then be extended down further south, and then the neighborhood will be able to access through there. So the existing utilities, there are a few existing utilities within this right of way. There's overhead power lines. There's a private irrigation ditch, which are all going to be rerouted around this. And then the storm drain improvements will be removed because they will no longer be needed because they're specifically for that road there. The 23,888 square feet will be incorporated into the parcel to the south. The zoning is not public, quasi-public, it's actually public facility. The public, quasi-public is the master plan. And Old Town Road will remain as the access point until these two roundabouts are completed. And then that's when it will be abandoned and the traffic will be rerouted to Warrior Lane. So that concludes my presentation. It's pretty simple. So this kind of highlights what the area will look like. That area in purple is the actual area that will be abandoned. And I'm here for any questions if you guys have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get to questions, forgive me, I forgot to ask Abby if there were any public comments on this agenda item. Abby, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask originally if there were any public comments on this agenda item.
None at this time, Mr. Chair, and none received.
Okay, thank you. Let me go to the Bryce. Do you have any questions, any comments?
I guess I'm just wondering what the reason is behind this. Are you trying to develop that property that you're opening up there?
So, so these two roundabouts are part of the larger Quilisi Ranch and part of Meridian 120 South, this whole development. And so these proposed roundabouts were already approved as part of some of the tentative maps that have been approved in this area. And so this is part of the requirement for the approval of those tentative maps.
So does the neighborhood like it, or they want this, or?
I'm not exactly sure. But I think there's been plenty of discussion and public comment about this, not specifically towards this abandonment, but about the proposed improvements.
I'm just wondering if they're trying to develop that parcel that they're creating.
So there are two parcels there. I don't know if we could go back to my presentation.
Just below the purple,
Yeah, there's gonna be two parcels within that little area that's kind of surrounded by those roads. Okay. There we go. And so you can see there's the dotted line right below the abandonment area. So that parcel below that is actually been dedicated for a fire station. And then the remaining parcel up there, so far there's been no plans. It's going to be zoned public facility. And so anything they do develop will have to fit in within the public facility zoning designation.
So this was already in the long-term plans. You're just now doing it, I guess.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Carol, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Andy, I just have a few questions. I don't know if you can, the history you have with Meridian 120 South, but just in no particular order, how has NDOT been involved in this project?
I have the engineer here who's much more involved in that, and she could probably answer it better than I can.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Hi, Ashley Verling with Wood Rogers. I'm a civil engineer on the project. We're currently in review with NDOT for that roundabout, the northern roundabout within the freeway area. So we haven't got full approval yet, but we're just in the process, making our way.
With NDOT, that is.
Yes, NDOT and the city. So both of those permits are making their way through. NDOT has to approve it, and then the city will approve their portion, and then both permits will be issued.
Have you had any feedback from NDOT yet?
I mean, it's been a really long process. So there's been a lot of, the traffic studies and everything like that. Everyone's on board in terms of the city and NDOT. And we're all just working together to get it processed.
So they've
So-
more or less given their approval. to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, we have a couple minor comments that we're addressing on the plans themselves.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Andy, just a couple more questions, if I may. So this was county land at one time. Now it's City of Reno land. So city owns it. Who will own it if this abandonment goes through?
So, yeah, this is a really weird area where there's all these jurisdictions that kind of meet. And so currently it's through the city of Reno because that's where it's being processed, and that's why we're here today. And then once it gets abandoned, it will go to the owner of the parcel there, and they need to purchase it for the assessed value.
So there is compensation for this
Yes.
thing. Okay, that wasn't clear in the application materials, but I'm glad to hear that. And in terms of, if I understood the materials correctly, that same owner will maintain this going forward?
The parcel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, the roundabout and all of that stuff. Who maintains that going forward?
I believe the roundabout is going to be dedicated to the city. Is that?
It'll be a combination of city and NDOT. So the northern roundabout is within NDOT right of way. And then everything south will be City of Reno owned and maintained.
Okay, so the city will be maintaining some of this, okay?
Yeah.
Is that included in the compensation as well? Because that's an ongoing expense.
No, I think it's just a part of, when the tentative maps come through, all of the lots, and stuff have to pay in. The developers pay fees for roadways and stuff like that. And so that's a part of just how the process works with tentative maps and roadway improvements like this.
I remember for Meridian 120 South that there was a lot of concern about access and egress for fire. And there've been some fires, I guess, north of that area, maybe, if I'm correct. Does this remediate that in any way? Does it provide easier access to the people a little further out, separated by the new subdivisions?
They were required, I believe, to provide a secondary access over kind of further west. So there will be a secondary access to the west. There will be this access, which is just kind of modifying the current access. And then there's a subdivision to the south of the existing subdivision, the Blue Heron subdivision. And they'll have an emergency access that kind of goes through the new subdivision. So there will be kind of multiple points of access. And then we've been working with the fire department to make sure that they're good, obviously, with the roadway and the section and everything like that, and have made whatever changes that they've requested.
So currently that wasn't in the application materials I saw. Is that being submitted to the city now? All of that?
Yes, so all of these permits, this is a very complicated project. There's a lot of mapping actions, a lot of permits, a lot of entities involved. And so this is just one small piece, the abandonment itself, to kind of, once the two roundabouts get built, then that road will no longer be needed. We can't obviously tie it into the roundabout. It just doesn't make sense traffic wise. So this is just a kind of a cleanup action to get rid of that piece of the road. But our permits are in process, all approvals are in process. And we're basically taking all the steps that we need to get the whole project across the finish line.
Was this noticed to residents, or I know there's a subdivision just to the east, and how far out was that noticed? Just the 750 feet?
Yeah, I am not 100% on that. It would be whatever the city was in charge of noticing for this. So whatever that requirement would be. Do you know?
I'm not exactly sure. The city, it looks like we could get an answer from the city here, so.
Yeah, so it would be the standard 750 feet unless there is less than 30 people notified within that 750. And then in that case, it goes out further. I can pull the courtesy notice and see how many people were notified if you give me just a couple minutes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure of that. But would you also know about how many comments there were, or would this be their first opportunity to make public comment in person? Is this the public hearing officially, or is that the city council?
This, for the abandonment, this is the
abandonment, yeah.
first public comment period, I
Okay.
believe.
Okay.
We did, the planner for the city received one comment online once the notices went out. And so there was just a neighbor that was questioning kind of the grades of the new road and the old road and stuff like that. So I provided a response for the city and I believe he forwarded it to her.
Okay. And last question, in the application materials, it mentions quote unquote, future subdivisions, plural. Are there any, what are these in the works right now then, or are they just ephemeral just to come in the future at some particular point?
No, I believe they are all approved.
Okay.
There's, as Eric mentioned, there's two. So there's Meridian South, which is kind of directly adjacent to the freeway, to the existing subdivision. And then Quillisi Ranch is another separate project, kind of up in the hills more. And that has also gone through tentative map processing. They're currently starting on that. And that's where Toll Brothers is the applicant on this because they're building this road to access the Quillisi Ranch project.
I see. So the traffic study currently takes account of all
Yes.
existing known plans.
Yeah, existing and what was known. So this is a part of the Mortensen Garson overlay district. And there's certain units that are allowed in the Boomtown area. And so the traffic report would have accounted for any future development that would be allowed or known at the time.
So there's some wiggle room in this. This hopefully is a solution that will satisfy everybody in terms of traffic movement and safety and speed and all that kind of thing for a long time now.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why, I mean, the roundabouts are a big infrastructure piece, right? And a big intersection. And so that's why, because there's a decent amount of homes going in, but it accounted for all of that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I just had one more couple more questions for you, Leah, just before we finish this item, if I may. First of all, am I correct? The abandonments do not go to the planning commission, they go directly to council?
I believe that is the case. Let me double check process here. It's been a while.
So while you're doing that, if that is the case, we generally go online to give our comments from the NAB to the planning commission. How would we do so for the city council?
Same thing.
Same
You
thing,
just
so
go on-
online, yeah. Okay,
Correct.
very good. And just question, I was going to ask this because we had 2 abandonments originally, so I thought I'd fill in a gap of information. There's really just one finding to approve an abandonment, quote, the city council shall find that the public will not be materially injured by the proposed amendment. Have there been any turndowns that you're aware of abandonments? Are there any reasons why this project would not be approved, that there's a precedent out there?
There have been abandonments that have not been approved. In this particular case, I'm not super familiar with the other ones. I just know that they weren't approved for whatever reason, but the ones that I know of that have not been approved were not related to anything this is related to, as in the creation of a subdivision. It was more stuff downtown.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Any other questions, Bryce? Kara?
Mr. Chair, we do have one public comment
Oh, very
in the
good.
room today for this item.
Okay.
Good evening, NAB members. Carly Borchard for the record. And I just want to be able to put on record a couple of the comments that I've heard from the neighbors, being a Verdi resident myself and very, very familiar with this project in particular and the road network that desperately needs improvements. So it's very difficult, I think, for a lot of people looking at this road infrastructure and saying it doesn't need improvements. It absolutely does. But that also stems a number of concerns from the existing residents, which, as we all should know, new developments should mitigate concerns for existing residents. And one of those major concerns that's been expressed multiple times, and I'm just going to reiterate it here tonight, is that this is actually the only access point out of Belay Ranch. This is This is it. This is the one road that they come in and out of. There is no secondary access out of Belli. So just to clarify, one thing that was said tonight, that secondary access from the new residents is actually funneling into Belli to come out this exact same exit. There's no different way out of that subdivision. So that is a grave concern for folks that have already had, excuse me, I don't like standing here, adverse effects from having to evacuate from that neighborhood already. There have been really quite tragic things that have happened during those evacuations in the past, and those concerns are very real and very in their face. The second thing that I would like to point out is that there's a lot of need for Washoe County to be involved in some of these discussions. I would really encourage the developer to reach out to them and make sure that they're running these plans by them, because these residents are Washoe County residents. They are not City of Reno residents. So you've got a situation where you're going to have two neighborhoods directly next to each other that are Washoe County versus City of Reno. And I think the more we can work together, the better. And then lastly, the other thing that I would like to state is I would really like to see this abandonment and this whole consideration for this road network to be in conjunction with that true secondary access that is having nothing but problems. And it's been my personal concern since day one on this development is that secondary access. If you guys could see it, I wish I had a presentation for you tonight. It's a hot mess. It's going into another neighborhood that's 10 times smaller than this, does not have any infrastructure, does not have any improvements slated for any improvements to their road network. There has been a multimodal study done, and even that study is claiming there's not much that can be improved to the road network that secondary access is coming out on. So just recently I looked at that application and I saw that it was on hold, and that's a very big concern. And it should be a grave concern for approving this abandonment or any additional improvements going forward. I think those two need to go hand in hand, because development should be limited if they can't get that secondary access figured out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carly. Andy, did you want to take an opportunity to comment on some of those comments?
Actually, Mr. Chair, as a reminder, we don't address public comment directly.
Is the secondary
I-
access she's talking about, is that the Mogul exit or the Mogul entrance? No. Okay.
That's for the Quilisi branch. The Quilisi is supposed to go on the south, on the east side.
Go ahead, Leah. You're able to unmute as you wish.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that 38 residents were notified, and the abandonment process does not go to Planning Commission. It does go directly to City Council. And I just wanted to let everybody know that I believe that secondary access application is active.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the record, I did try to see if you could have an opportunity, but maybe you'll bear that in mind when you present it eventually, because there were some good points there. Thank you. That ends that agenda item. Moving on to item B4, Regional Transportation Commission, circulation study for McCarran and 7th Street.
Sorry about that, guys. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sarah Going. I'm an engineer with the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County. I'm also a Ward 5 resident, so I'm very happy to be here with you guys today. I'm with you to talk about a focus study we're doing over at North McCarran Boulevard and West 7th Street. We're doing a small circulation study in this area
This was brought to our attention by the city and some complaints they had received about issues with pedestrians, transit vehicles, and also motor vehicles circulating the area, most critically on the east side of the intersection. So some of those reported issues were conflicts between motor vehicles and transit vehicles, primarily at the RTC bus stop on the southeast corner there, where if you're familiar with the area, there's a Save Mart shopping center, and 2 lanes come in out of the intersection from McCarran, and one of those drops into a right turn lane at the shopping center. But we also have a transit stop prior to that right turn lane. So there's some conflicts between vehicles and buses there. Also at that driveway, there is a significant number of pedestrians crossing outside of marked crosswalks, both going to the shopping center and the transit stops that is right outside the Vintage Hill Senior Apartments complex. So it is a number of senior citizens and wheelchair users. So I'm just here to introduce the study today and also to get your input if there are other things that the neighborhood has seen that we should be considering in our evaluation. And if we go to the next slide, we also have my contact information available for anyone who, if you don't have anything to share today, you can also contact me and let me know what issues you see that we should be considering in our study. And I'm also available for any questions you have.
Well, Carol Crane.
Carol?
I go by that now for many years, probably 20 years. It's extremely busy. And when the bus stops there, it's very dangerous. And the lanes the one lane disappearing. It's a real concern for safety for everybody, those driving and those pedestrians and everything else. So I'm glad that you're looking into that. But just as a bypasser, I can see the situation and how important it is to be addressed right now.
Bryce, any questions, comments?
I agree. I'm in that Bank of America, Flowing Tide, Jack in the Box, all those places in there. Haircut place. But I don't really see a clear answer on how to like fix that unless you put a crosswalk like across there, and that's still a pretty dangerous intersection because people are flying down that and they're either flying across McCarran coming down 7th. And then people are trying to turn left out of the shopping center and people are flying up 7th Street. So it's just very busy and a dangerous area. So then when you add in seniors walking across there, but I don't really have a answer to how to solve that.
Yeah, you don't have to. Our team is looking at it. So we've completed traffic counts at the intersection, and they'll also be looking at how vehicles are circulating, and we'll be proposing improvements to help improve all of these issues. It is a complicated area. So we're hoping we can find solutions, but again, we don't have them here today. We're just initiating the study at this point.
And I think one of the hard parts is you're on McCarran going south and you're turning left. There's 2 turn lanes.
Mhm.
And then you turn into the 2 lanes on 7th Street, and one you have to turn right into the shopping center and the other one continues straight. So half of those cars have to zoom into the right lane, or the bus stops in front of all the cars that are turning left right there. And it creates a bottleneck and people get frustrated and swerve out of the way, and accidents happen. So I look forward to it.
Sarah, also, I don't have any suggestions. It's not my sweet spot, but I will say I have some friends that live in the senior apartments right there, and they, even though they can walk and they'd like to, they generally wait for one of the buses in their complex, and they don't go all the time. So I really do see that as being an issue. It's such a busy area. The cars come flying through there at that part, and I do see people too. So I support the fact very much that you've got a circulation study. But just one final question. I know you don't have the results of it yet, but what are some possible solutions here? Can you at least throw some things up on the wall for us?
Yeah, great question. So we are looking at the feasibility of putting in a crosswalk there. We're assessing what we call stopping sight distance. So making sure that there's adequate sight distance for vehicles to see a pedestrian and be able to stop in time. We're also looking at relocating those bus stops and making sure that if we do really relocate those bus stops out of that conflict area, that they are still accessible by pedestrians. And we're also taking a look, I think that was a very good comment about that southbound left turn lane. There's 2 left turns going in there. We're also assessing the lane configuration at the intersection that's feeding into that segment of 7th Street and seeing what is really needed there to see if we can't focus traffic a little bit more and make it less of a scramble once you get into that drop lane, and possibly providing some signage to help people understand which lane to be in.
I guess one suggestion I just thought of is, so if you're on the other side of Bank of America, you're not supposed to turn right out of that onto McCarran. And it's probably because of you're too close to the light or whatnot. But maybe if half the cars were able to turn that way, it would create a lot less traffic on that intersection there. You know, because most people are turning left and either going back onto McCarran or going up to Walmart or whatnot. But if you were able to turn onto McCarran instead, which is a much busier street, it would create some kind of way out of there that would cut down the traffic at least. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you for that suggestion. We'll take a look at
I'm
that.
sure there's a reason why you can't turn right out of there. It's probably because it's too close to the light or something like that. But I don't know. I'll let you figure that out.
Yeah, we can definitely look into it more.
Any other
Yes, because
questions?
we've learned that seniors that do live there in the Vintage Hills, the intersection at the corners of 7th and McCarran are kind of far for them to walk. And so there would be nice if there was a crosswalk where it's easier for them to cross, but it would need a lighted flashing, the stop signs that you're seeing around now. I know it would mean that people would have to stop before they get to the big intersection, but it would be a lot safer to have that particular crosswalk moved to where it's actually used, so people aren't crossing this 7th Street illegally, because that's done a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always a goal to facilitate a safe crossing where people want to cross. We do want to make sure that it is a safe crossing, though, before we go ahead and mark a crosswalk there. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That's all the questions we have. Abby, do we have any public comment for this agenda item?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. Mac Rossi?
Good evening, members. Mac Rossi for the record. This has been a committee of one on this project, and that happens to be me. And I was hoping that we could touch base on a couple of things, and I thank both the city of Reno, NDOT, and Sarah for her patience in listening to me, if nothing else. And one thing is the bus stop is an AD approved. It needs to be modified. There was a suggestion of just eliminating that as a right-hand turn lane. And because all it does is bring you into the shopping center where Save Mart and everything is. The other thing is move the bus stop just to the other side of the driveway. The street widens quite a bit. You can paint a truck or tune up a bus over there or something, because there's enough room just to move it about 100 feet just to the other side of the driveway. But these are just alternatives. I know the folks are still working on it, and I hope we come to a conclusion soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mac. Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Also, if I can, I don't want to divert from the agenda too much, but since we have this same group that's working on Keystone and McCarran, just a little update if that can be possible. Thank you.
It can be given at public comment if Khalil is willing, or RTC, or NDOT, if they would like. And you can, yeah.
So my name is Jeff Wilbrecht. Excuse my voice for the record. I have a first grader, 4 weeks into first grade. Sorry, anyways. So yeah, I'm Jeff Lobrecht. I'm with RTC. I'm an engineering manager. And yes, Keystone Leadership McCarran intersection. RTC has been partnering with NDOT on that project. RTC is fully funding the construction of the signal at that intersection. It's proposed to go to construction in the 2024 timeframe. It's being packaged with a much larger project, or not much larger, but it's being packaged with the project that includes some median control elements, access management elements from Keystone, essentially down towards Las Brisas and this intersection, as well as a high T intersection at Las Brisas, which will provide a lot of safety benefit at that intersection as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Moving on to item B5, we have Anne Elizabeth Norton, the Executive Director of Join Together Northern Nevada, with us.
Yes,
Good.
Anne Elizabeth will be joining us via Zoom. I'm really excited about this presentation. Just as a reminder, the Ward 5 NAB has chosen to explore the issue of substance abuse or substance misuse for the community project as part of our efforts to kind of continue learning about and working to address a community issue. So Anne Elizabeth is the Executive Director for Join Together Northern Nevada, and they partner with many local organizations and agencies to address these issues. And she's got some great data to share with us, along with some description of the current work that's being done to address this issue. So really excited to hear from her.
Great. Thank you for having me at this meeting. I'm excited to talk to you about this issue. And thank you for joining us in recognizing substance misuse as an issue in our community and taking time to look at the data. We appreciate data-driven, meaningful decisions for the betterment of the citizens of Washoe County. So thank you for having me, and thank you for the introduction. I'm Anne Elizabeth. I'm the Executive Director for Join Together Northern Nevada. I'm going to spend just a couple of seconds qualifying myself to speak on this issue. I've served as the Executive Director for Join Together Northern Nevada for 2 years. I have lived recovery experience. I serve on a variety of state and local committees working with this issue, and I'm passionate about making a difference in Washoe County. JTNN's comprehensive prevention plan, which is the data that you're going to be seeing today, in addition to some other sources, is utilized by the Washoe County Regional Behavioral Health Policy Board and is the community source of data regarding prevention work. We are one of 10 coalitions that serve the state of Nevada and are written into legislation through SB 69. We specifically serve Washoe County. Perfect. Just a little bit about us. Our mission is to create a healthy, drug-free community by building successful partnerships to support prevention, education, and outreach. Our vision is a community that's free from substance abuse and addiction. I think sometimes, especially now with the advent of fentanyl, which has been hitting our communities hard since COVID-19 kind of started at the same time, a lot of individuals may assume that JTNN is focused on overdose prevention only. That's not the case. We have a much broader scope than harm reduction, though it is part of our efforts to create a safe environment for all people in this community. Okay. Moving right along. So I'm just going to situate us with some context so that, as I'm diving into the data and talking about these things, that we're on the same page. So I want to start with the continuum of care and where we fall within that continuum of care. So you can see on your screen, and I'm not sure if it was in your packet or not, but it's here, and I'll provide this presentation for you, the continuum of care. And so prevention really falls in these blue indicated areas. So promotion goes throughout. That's social norming. That's saying, we don't want our kids to drink alcohol until they're 21 or until their brains are fully developed, right? This health promotion, it's not safe, right, to do these things. And then we move into the prevention. So there's universal, selective, and indicated. Based on the student population. JTNN is focused on universal primary prevention, which means we serve all students with evidence-based programming that can be used for all students, no matter the demographic. There are several evidence-based programs that work for everybody. So that's universal. We also have some selective and indicated. So this is right before maybe a child is dabbling in substances or considering dabbling in substances, maybe has gotten in trouble, but isn't yet diagnosable, and therefore doesn't qualify for substance misuse treatment. We can also work and engage in this space. Perfect. Risk and protective factors is what we really look at. So when we're talking about prevention work of substance misuse disorder, we're talking about going upstream as far as we can go into an individual's life, into a community's existence, and really solving problems before they even begin. Right now, as we know, the overdose rates are very high. We can't save everybody with treatment and recovery. And that's why prevention is so important to me personally and to our community, is really getting to the root cause of the problem and resolving things before they begin. We also know that upstream prevention is the most cost-effective and meaningful way to create healthy, thriving communities. Okay, and you also have a sheet in your packet, I believe, that outlines many risk and protective factors that we look at when we're collecting data and deciding what programs we're going to put out into the community. So you have access to that as well. And then that they're outlined within the child development ecology, which I have here, which just says, when we're talking about prevention in an individual, that we talk about them as a holistic person. So we talk about their relationship to their families and friends. We talk about their relationship to the organizations to which they belong. Predominantly, when we're talking about youth, we're talking about school environment. They spend the majority of their time in school. And then community has an impact on what happens with an individual and what outcomes there are for that individual. And then the outer layer is public policy, right? The laws that keep us safe, the not drinking until 21, the making sure that we're doing compliance checks, which we do in partnership with City of Reno, and things like that. So that sort of broader public policy realm. Okay. Perfect. Let's jump into local data. I know there was a lot of interest in the local data, so I tried to keep my initial short and sweet and jump right into our data. You'll see me jump around just a little bit on data between youth and adults and what's going on with overdose and all of that. So feel free to stop me and ask any questions along the way, or you can always ask at the end as well. But I want to throw that out there. You're more than welcome to stop and ask me questions along the way with data. Okay. This is also in your packet. OD Maps is a collaboration between HIDTA, which is the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Group, and the Attorney General's Office. There are HIDTA stations all over the country. So this is a federal group, and then again in collaboration with the Attorney General's Office. This report functions off of emergency medical service reports. And so when we're looking at data like this, the caveat is that it may not capture all of the data that we need. And so often we will compare this data with something like SUITRS, which is the opioid response reports, and medical examiners reports as well, so that we're really well-rounded with the data.
And Elizabeth,
Sure.
This is Gary Cecil. Is it in a package? Do we have this packet here? Because I'm having a hard time seeing the roads in, I get the general idea of Ward 5, but I don't think we have the copy of that in our hands here, Anne Marie. Could you just point out where most of the dots are, or if there's a concentration there as you would see it?
Yeah, so, and is someone talking? Okay.
No, go ahead.
And I did focus this map as best I could on Ward 5. I also call Ward 5 home, so this was really interesting to look at for me. At the far left hand, to situate you on the map, is the Somerset Golf and Country Club, and then towards the center where there's that high concentration of dots is downtown Reno. So as we get closer to downtown, Arlington Avenue, 7th Street, Kings Row, moving into that area, there's a higher concentration of overdoses occurring.
So these overdoses are reported how? How does the reporting authority know that there are overdoses? Is it through the hospital or RPD or
It's
who?
Yeah, it's singularly through emergency medical services. So when an EMS appears at the scene, then they report this to OD Maps. And law enforcement, I believe, also has access. I know the AG's office was trying to get kind of more participation from law enforcement as well as EMS, and some more capacity for some different reporting, because it may or may not capture every single overdose, but it does give us it's the only in the moment data that we have. So I can see data from today if I wanted to, and that's unique. And so, yeah, that was a long answer to your short question. EMS reports.
So over what time period is this particular one?
This particular one is from the start of the year until 8/27. So I tried to give you kind of a current sample of what has gone on this year with overdoses. So you can, if you can't see those numbers, I'll just read them to you. Total suspected overdoses this year, 1,779 in Washoe County. So this is all of Washoe County. Suspected fatal overdoses, 90. And naloxone, which is an opioid overdose reversal drug, was present at 531 of those scenes and reversed opioid overdose. So where you see the blue dots, those were reversed opioid overdoses.
May I ask a related question? And forgive me if I'm going beyond the bounds of what you might have in your organization, but would you see these overdoses as correlated directly with selling of drugs, same locations, or are there other locations in the city outside of Ward 5 the drugs come from, or just wondered if it was linked in any way?
Yeah, so that's just a little bit outside of my purview. I can certainly find out, but I will say when we're looking at OD Maps, sometimes I look at California, and when I look at the border, I can see when there's a spike at the border, and there will be a spike in the city of Reno within the following week. So I know that there is a kind of a trend up coming when there's a trend up at the California border. A lot of our drugs come over 395 or I-80. And so we can track it kind of at a macro level. At the micro level, it's pretty hard to track where people are buying and selling. There's more accessibility in the downtown region, partially because we have a 24-hour city. We have casinos, we have a lot of activity, we have people coming in from out of town and all of that. And so there's more accessibility in the downtown region, which is why we see more overdoses.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to hold you up. I'm just very, very interested because I live right slam bang in the middle of that greatest concentration of overdoses.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem at all. It is interesting data. JTNN is actually located on Arlington Avenue in California. And so we are in that area as well. And it's been a sad couple of years with the uptick in overdoses. Okay. Anything else on this map before I move on? Hearing none.
No, it looks like we're okay for her. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, overdoses in Washoe County. So percentage of age ranges of overdose deaths. I just wanted to give you kind of a snapshot. Who are these people? Because it's really easy to get lost in the statistics. And I think when we look at ages and demographics of all kinds, it humanizes the issue and we can really talk about it in a meaningful way. So I threw percentage of age ranges of overdose death. And on this, the colors represent the years. So it's a comparison between 2019, 2020, and 2021. So you can see in 2021, 35 to 44 years old is our highest overdose. And you can see our under 18 is pretty low. Our youth are really utilizing accessible drugs like marijuana, alcohol, and vape. So that's what we see predominantly with youth, but all drug use is related. And so what we see when our youth are using in their adolescence, they're more prone to have a substance misuse disorder and to overdose at some point in their life later on. Okay, circumstances are really important to us. We do some harm reduction work in order to keep people alive long enough to get into recovery. That's the goal for us. And so these are really interesting circumstances that we see, and they're really hard to see on this. So I'm happy to point you in the right direction. This comes directly out of our comprehensive community prevention plan, and the data itself came from SUDERS, which is our comprehensive opioid response data. And so what I want to draw your attention to on this is that overdoses are occurring in a home setting. So people are utilizing substances at home, and these overdoses are occurring at home. A lot of the overdoses that we're seeing have a bystander present, which means to us that the more naloxone that's out in the community, the more lives that we'll be able to save, because if there's a bystander present who can administer naloxone, then we can save more and more of these folks who are overdosing. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to move on from overdoses and talk a little bit about what's going on with our youth. That's our focus area. And then I'll jump back and forth between adults and youth to talk about risk and protective factors and why they matter. Okay. I don't know if this is covering that up. Okay. This is an interesting set of data to me. Juvenile arrests of assorted offenses in Washoe County. So this is outcome data. And so what we're seeing here is that drug violations are the highest for juvenile arrest offenses. Okay, so drug violations or possession is pretty high. We saw a big downturn in 2020. Why? Because kids were at home in 2020. And we started to see that uptrend again, but we had a huge spike in 2019. Okay, and then the second highest number of arrests were for liquor laws. So minor in consumption, minor in possession. This has been downtrending, which is nice to see. We've been working with our retailers, and so I'm hopeful that that's part of our efforts are working, that's a sign that they're working, is that retailers aren't selling to minors, and that the enforcement is there. Okay. Perfect. Okay. One of the important things that we talk about that we can really do something about is the perception of risk and the accessibility of alcohol and drugs. This is true not just for youth. We talk about it in particular with youth, but it's also accessibility also affects people in recovery or people who are trying to seek treatment, because if something's accessible, you're more likely to use it. It's just a simple logic there. So high school students who thought it would be very easy to get alcohol or drugs if they wanted some by type. Obviously alcohol and marijuana are high. Electronic vapor products are the highest. And you have this comparison here between Washoe County and Nevada numbers. We're very, very similar to the statewide numbers here, a little bit higher in electronic vapor products, ease of access to those. Okay. Adult use of marijuana, we look at this is a risk factor. So if the adults in a child's life are utilizing substances of any kind, the perception of risk for that substance goes down. Kids see their parents utilizing marijuana, and this is just an example. There's all kinds of examples of this. If they see that, then they assume that it's not too bad for you. So their perception of risk of harm goes down. And so we look at the adult use of marijuana in this way to see, where our perceptions are at this time. And that's been steadily increasing since legalization. You can see in 2015, we were at 9.5% of adults were using. And then in 2021, we have 19.4% of adults. And these are all self-reports in the BRFSS. Okay. Perfect. I always like to talk when we're talking about substance misuse about alcohol impaired driving fatalities. And we're seeing more and more across the country, but in Washoe County in particular, more and more polysubstance use incidents. So people who are not only alcohol impaired, but also have THC on board, also have benzodiazepines on board, also have fentanyl on board. We're seeing a lot more polysubstance use. The data really isn't there because if law enforcement, and this is true across the country, not just our law enforcement, if law enforcement has somebody on an alcohol DUI, that's sufficient. Okay, so THC is a little bit harder to prove, can get thrown out often by a DA because attorneys can fight that charge because THC stays in the system so long. Pills, benzodiazepines, fentanyl all go out of your system pretty quickly. So those things are tested for, but alcohol is sufficient. And so we're not seeing a lot of the polysubstance lab reports coming out of toxicology on folks with impaired driving charges. But for your overall impression or information on this, there's a lot of polysubstance use going on, self-reported and otherwise. So you can see for percentage of alcohol impaired driving fatalities, this is youth and adults, so it's a combined number. We were doing okay in 2012, and it really jumped up in 2016. And Washoe County is much higher than Nevada. Then we took a dip in 2018, and now we're on the rise again. We're upward trending. So 2019 and 2020, we upward trended, and we are again above the Nevada and United States averages. Okay. A little bit more on risk and protective factors. And so again, upstream prevention means that we're looking at things other than just misuse, than just that final outcome. And so one of the things we look at are ACE questions, adverse childhood experience questions. This was a study that came out of Kaiser Permanente, probably in the 1990s. And they found that ACEs have a dose effect. So the more ACEs you have, the more likely you are to die an early death of anything. And so we really look at these things when we're looking at substance misuse. So these figures show you a couple of things that were pretty high for Washoe County. These are high school students who've ever lived with someone who is having a problem with alcohol or drug use. That's 35% self-reported high school students lived with somebody who is having a problem with alcohol or drug use. The second figure here is high school students who were ever separated from a parent or guardian, who went to jail, prison, detention center, etc. 20% of our kids are experiencing trauma through that. And then high school students who were ever sworn at, insulted, put down by an adult in their home. Those numbers are pretty high. 16% said most of the time or always, and 26% said sometimes. And so these numbers, I don't have the comparison data on this slide. These numbers have gone up since the pandemic. And we saw data across the board with domestic abuse, sexual abuse in the home, and substance misuse went up, and all of these sort of domestic items that are so important for keeping our students safe really upticked during the pandemic for a variety of reasons, mental health reasons, coping with substances reasons, because everyone was trapped at home with one another and didn't have kind of the additional support of going to school and being able to talk to somebody or somebody noticing and all of that. And so this has risen. Okay, any questions about any of that data before I kind of jump into what's currently going on with prevention?
Just the Washoe County Pally numbers. Why was there any speculation as to why that was so high? Especially compared to Nevada as a whole.
Yeah, I am not, I don't have that data at my fingertips because I'm out of town. I was looking for DUI fatality data from the medical examiner, and I have all of that on my office computer. So I don't have that on me, but I can find out for you.
Yeah, considering Clark County's population area, for Washoe to be so significantly higher than the Nevada average, it's pretty stunning to me.
Yeah.
Thank
It
you.
is. It's very high. So we have a couple of negative things that we are surpassing Clark County in. Okay. Perfect. Current prevention activities. I like to think of JTNN as a three-legged stool. And so those legs include direct service. So going into schools, being a resource hub. We can do warm handoff referrals for people who do need treatment. We provide a resource list to Washoe County School District, and it's their resource list that they utilize. We provide community education opportunities. So all of that is considered direct service. We also do community outreach. That's at that community level. So you can kind of see the child development ecology in here. Direct service is really at that individual peer level. Outreach is at that full community level. And so we engage in we facilitate the RX Take Back Days in collaboration with local law enforcement and our prevention partners. We engage in compliance checks with the HEAT team. That contract is through RPD. I'm sure you saw it go through a city council at some point just recently. And so we make sure that retailers are not selling to minors, that they're checking IDs, that they have the education they need to do that, and that we can support those retailers who are abiding by the law and give them some recognition for that compliance. We also facilitate Overdose Awareness Day every year. That event just passed. We had about 250 people at the event. And so bringing awareness to the community, bringing people together to solve this complex issue with outreach. The third leg of the stool is harm reduction. We distribute for free to the community Narcan and fentanyl test strips. We also provide trainings. We've done some at the city of Reno. We've done many all over that downtown area because casinos were identified as a hotspot for overdose probably 2 years ago now. And so we really worked with casino security to do Narcan trainings, make sure they had Narcan on them all the time and knew how to use it. And then we also place an employee with the city of Reno Community Court and the Safe and Clean team. And so that individual goes out and works with the unhoused population. Housing is also a risk factor for substance misuse, relapse, overdose, etc. And so going out with our unhoused population and providing resources, doing warm handoffs, assisting with some of the necessities of life, getting a social security card, a driver's license, phone, all of those things our employee assists with at community court. And then we also do supportive activities. We support harm reduction. And so we assist where we can in any way that we can with that. Okay. Let's talk about what we're doing in Ward 5 right now. We're doing compliance checks, which I just talked about a little bit, and retail education. We also do handle with care with the Washoe County School District. That's when a student has a traumatic event. Law enforcement agencies, whoever's handling that case, will report to the handle with care application, an alert that has no details about what happened, but just says this child needs to be handled with care with the name. Gets sent to administrator at Washoe County School District Counseling. It also gets sent to me. And that counselor passes it down to the teacher, and everyone is trained to handle that child with care. It's not to do anything with them. It's to monitor them, to be lenient with them, to help them through things if they're having a hard day. All of that goes into handle with care. So we're doing that. We have parent education. Parent Night Out and Parent Project are what we're currently doing. Those are SAMHSA approved programs. That's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration at the federal level. And so we're doing parent education. Too Good for Drugs is the curriculum we're currently taking into elementary and high schools. We serve K through 12 with that curriculum currently. Catch My Breath is a vaping specific program. We're taking that into our middle schools. Washoe County Prevention Conference, our first annual conference was last year. This is an opportunity for professionals who work with youth to gather together and talk about prevention topics and work together and collaborate. Washoe County School District Mental Health Team Professional Development. We are really close with our counseling department, and so we facilitate their mental health team professional development. We do Narcan trainings. We're doing Uber Health, which we identified transportation as a gap in our community for people who are seeking recovery. And so we began utilizing Uber Health to provide free transportation via a HIPAA trained driver for those who are seeking treatment. And then also Nalox boxes. So lots and lots of things going on with us. And I will end it there so you can ask questions. I think I was probably a little bit long-winded.
Anna Elizabeth, thank you very much. That's very good. And Jenna, thank you for inviting Anna Elizabeth. Let me turn to my colleagues here. Bryce, did you have any questions, any comments?
No, thank you for the presentation. You seem very passionate about this. And so that is definitely needed. Yeah, seeing all the numbers is crazy and everything that's going on. I have 2 kids, so something you always think about, and glad to know that you're out there. Thank you for the presentation.
Carol? Carol, nothing? Okay. Anna Elizabeth, thank you very much. I love the data. I don't think we have the deck, so I'd love to have this if I may, or send it to the NAB. So can we coordinate that through you, Jenna, then, or?
Yes, absolutely. So Anna Elizabeth, I know the materials you sent originally were different than what we've got in this slide deck. This is a lot more comprehensive, and I would absolutely love to pass it along to the NAB members. So if you could just shoot that to my email, we will make sure that the NAB members have it as soon as possible.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
I'll send that right after the meeting.
And Elizabeth, the reason I think I don't know if Jenna's filled you in on the NAB project. So we're still kind of just meeting by meeting, kind of grappling with, first of all, identifying a need that we feel is important, and we kind of coalesced around something to do with the drug issue that may happen in Ward 5. So seeing those dots of the overdoses, I think, to me, and forgive me, Bryce and Carol, but it seems to me that proves that there is something out there for us to be concerned about as a neighborhood advisory board. The only questions I have for you, I did pull down from your website what you call the substance abuse resources in Northern Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
And are these all organizations that you team with and that you validate as worthwhile organizations to work with?
Yes. So as a coalition, one of our main purposes in our work is to coalesce with all of these organizations and to partner. And so the folks that are on the resource list have been identified as their partner agencies. We work with them on a regular basis. And that list gets reassessed every 6 months or so, because I think, as everyone here knows, treatment agencies, there's not a lot of treatment agencies, and their service areas change and their Medicaid requirements change and all of that. So we update that every 6 months or so.
Well, it's a very comprehensive list, you know, into the different sections. I was blown away when my printer kept on printing how many pages of organizations there are. It's pretty remarkable. I had no idea, so ignorant I feel about this. In terms of what we can do as a NAB, we have some limited resources. And I guess I would ask you, in terms of a realistic kind of size thing, where are the biggest needs in Ward 5? Either it be funding or labor or whatever. Do you see any particular avenues, opportunities where there are some gaps in services or things that we might look into as an advisory board?
Sure. I think I'll bring up transportation first. That Uber Health that I just discussed was born out of a huge gap for transportation in our community, and it was funded through the CDC through OD2A grant funding. That funding just ended. And so we are no longer able to provide Uber Health rides. We were providing approximately 150 a month. And so those folks are going to lose transportation until I find a way to fund it again. And so transportation, I think, is one of the major issues. And even with limited funding, Uber Health is pretty sustainable. And so that's one area that I think would be really helpful, especially to our downtown population that don't have transportation, that really need to get to an AA meeting, an NA meeting, to treatment, to medicated assisted treatment, to all of those services that are so vital for recovery. And so I would say transportation is one of the major issues. Nalox boxes, we're getting those out into the community. Those are emergency boxes. They look a lot like AED boxes, but they have naloxone in them in the case of an incident happening, that there's always naloxone kind of available would be the goal for that. Really with that, marketing support, getting the word out there, talking about nalox boxes, that's sort of more of a time item. And then the third item I wanted to bring up is that we're really trying to provide alternative activities for our youth. And so what we see, and I'm sure this isn't surprising, is that during major life events like graduation or prom, we see an uptick of issues with our youth drinking, overdosing. There's a lot going on emotionally and otherwise with our kiddos at those times. So we would like to provide sober graduation activities and things like that. That's another area. I wanted to give you kind of one from each part of what we do, whatever kind of interests you. But those are the things I think are most important. As far as time, I would love to have anyone who's involved with NAB to come to committees to talk to us about what you're seeing, to get data from us. I'd love to have you join us in the coalition. So that's my ask, is to join us in this work and sort of be present as part of this work as well.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I really appreciate that. Do you have any questions for us?
I don't think so. I appreciate the ability to come and talk about this. And again, to reiterate, I'm happy to talk one-on-one, to talk offline at any time. I can email you additional data. A lot of our data is on our website, so feel free to go in that direction and kind of look at what we're doing and what's upcoming, and to ask me any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Bryce, anything else? Carol? No. Well, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate it, Anna Elizabeth. Hope to meet you personally sometime.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we do have one public commenter, Mac Rossi, in regards to this item.
Mac Rossi for the record. I know it's getting late. Just one question on one of the screens where you had all the little dots. How many of those overdoses resulted in death?
Am I able to answer? It's 90, let me just pull up my sheet to make sure I have the right information. 90 fatalities. So we've been doing much better with saturating the community. We work with CASAT over at UNR on their saturation plan, their community saturation plan for Narcan. And so we're seeing a lot more naloxone being used at this time and reversing opioid overdoses. So for that data set from January 1st, 2023 through August 27th, 2023, there were 90 fatalities.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Anna Elizabeth.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you as well.
Thank you. Time's getting on, but we have B6 there in terms of discussion, possible recommendations. So what stage are we at in our project? We are, I mean, I know we talked about identifying the need and those basics at the start.
Yes, thank you. So Jana Moyer, Community Liaison for the record. I think we are, I'm going to leave this up to you a little bit, but we are now, we've learned a lot, heard from her about the current efforts. And so I would say we are ready to move into that ideate phase. And I was really enjoying your line of questioning, Gary, because I asked her kind of all the same questions, anticipating that you all would ask those things, right? Where is the need? What do you see? Where could we have an impact with $5,000? I'm not sure, Abby, if Anne Marie is still there. Oh, it looks like she is. But I definitely heard the transportation barrier as a really needed piece. And I think when we discussed it, and Anna Elizabeth mentioned that they're looking for more sustainable funding, but there's a huge need right now. And when there's a gap, often people who have been getting to their appointments, it's tough when you stop going consistently. So I heard, definitely made note of all of the things that she said, and I'm sure you did it as well. So I'll leave that to you if you'd like to have some discussion around ideating, or if you would like to have, kind of let all of that information sink in, and, on your own, have some time to think about this before the next meeting, and then come back with ideas of where you would like to put the money and your efforts in your project.
Royce, Carol, any thoughts on that or any? So Carol's not fully up to speed yet, but Carol, do you have any other questions about what we're going to say? You're on board with that?
Transportation.
Well, just in general as to what the we've been giving the challenge of seeing if we can do a project with. Okay. Bryce, anything else? I know you got to get to it.
I don't really love the idea of paying Uber to drive people around personally. I mean, I would hope there'd be something a little better than that. I mean, Uber's a for-profit business. So
Mr. Chair, if I can kind of speak to this, this is actually something that I think the SCAC committee did a while back as well, was partnering with Uber to get a senior citizen advisory committee did as well. And it was one of the programs that the city of Reno kind of initiated because of accessibility and ability. And one of the things that I heard from Anna Elizabeth and the positives of the Uber rides is that these drivers are HIPAA compliant. So they are trained specifically to take these individuals who have certain needs, and HIPAA is a very big thing, you don't want, it's just private information. But that is something similar that the city of Reno did with the senior citizens as well. A time ago. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember it being a program that was initiated then.
Yeah, so I think we are agendized for discussion, but it's late. And it was a lot of information. And I know that you would probably like to maybe have some time to really look through it again in detail, simmer on that.
So, you don't have to make any decisions or further discussion today if you don't want to. If you would like to just set it aside until the next meeting and have time to think through before, that's totally up to you.
Yeah, I think one other thing too, if you could forward that information that you were talking about from you and from Anna Marie to Jeff and bring him up to speed in some way with if you had questions or where we're headed or whatever, so that we can hit the ground running, hopefully in the future. So that would be great.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for arranging that, Jenna. Appreciate it very much. The data blows me away. It's always, whew.
It's tough.
All right, moving on. Appointment of the October meeting chairperson.
I'd like to appoint Gary Cecil as the chairperson.
Unfortunately, I'm not available next month. I'm out of town traveling and in areas where I won't be available.
Gary.
It's long-term friends we haven't seen. They've gone through some losses, and
Oh.
so they're coming out specially. So we're going to meet them in a special place. So I would zoom in, but I don't think we're going to be available. But
I would
anyway.
like to nominate Bryce Chisholm. to-
Go ahead and deny that.
I think Jeff would do it if
I
given
get
the
a
chance.
nomination
So
in a
I would
second.
nominate Jeff. Yeah.
I nominate Jeff.
Okay.
I'll second Jeff.
All right.
Jeff.
Does anybody have any future agenda items? Number D. I have no new ones. Just I'd love some updates on the status of the Title 18 and 4 and 5 review and revision plans, and just want to make sure that community involvement is taken early and often. And I'd still like another look at the new district maps. I think they voted on finally tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Yeah, that's why we couldn't do it now. But I'd love to take a look at that with everybody here. Just
Mi-
those two.
Mr. Chair, can we go back to B7 and get, I didn't get the nomination in the second and then the vote?
Oh, okay. So I nominate Jeff Harvey. Do I hear a second?
I second that nomination.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you. And then I think we skipped C.
Oh,
Yes.
are there any board, commission, committee member reports and announcements? Not hearing any. We'll close that item. And then finally, any more public comment?
And to go back to your future agenda items, Mr. Chair, we
Sorry.
are currently working on the redistricting, updates given what happens next. So that will be coming soon once once everything gets voted on and everything. So we'll have that. And then Title 18 is still on our radar. So once everything is finalized on their end, we'll make sure to provide updates.
Thank you. And 4 and 5 too, I think Lance Ferrato's just getting going on that. So maybe it's a bit premature. We'll have to, but it's always good to get in at the early stages. Thank you. Thank you, Abby.
Perfect.
Agenda item E, any more public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Hearing none, we'll move on. Do I have a motion for adjournment, please?
Motion to adjourn?
Second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. End of the meeting.